Can an e-bike climb any steeper than a conventional bike? It's a question I get asked all the time. Is there any truth in it? Well, it depends. It depends whether I can actually be bothered to remind myself how tedious it is pushing an antique bike up the hill. Now, I'm only kidding. I love riding conventional bikes as much as anybody else, but is there actually truth in this whatsoever? Let's go and find out. Right, let's start off by having a close look at the two bikes that we'll be using today. In front of me is the Scott Spark 700, and over here is the High Bike X Duro with the Yamaha PWX motor. Obviously, this is the e-bike. The Scott Spark is an all carbon fiber chassis, whereas the High Bike is totally aluminium. In terms of travel, we're looking at about 120 mil, and the High Bike is 180. So when it comes to climbing, this bike probably has no right to be on the hill. However, gearing wise, the Spark has got a 34 tooth front chainring, and the cassette is an Eagle on it. That's a 10 to 50 tooth cassette on the back. So it's actually made for climbing. It's a cross-country flying machine. The High Bike has got a 38 tooth up front, and obviously it's got 1146 on the back. So this bike is actually geared higher than that bike, so it should be at a disadvantage when it comes to the steeper stuff. Weight wise, we're looking at about, that bike is no more than 12 kilos, which is probably about half the weight of this High Bike, which weighs in at about 23, 24. So yeah, when it comes to climbing, that bike is a flying machine, it's a cross-country race bike. It should have every chance of beating the electric bike up any bank. Right, first up, let's talk about the actual type of climbs that we'll be doing today. Now, we're not going to be doing the Danny McCaskill, Chris Ackrig style climbs, which require a certain hopping technique. We're talking about hills you can actually pedal up. Let's have a look at the weights and measures involved in today's climbing challenge. Now, at 95 kilos, I'm not exactly the ideal weight for climbing hills. However, when you look at the system weights, this bike is 12 kilos and the High Bike is 25, you're looking at probably a 12 kilo difference. So I don't think that's going to make much difference. What's going to make the difference is, I think, the Yamaha motor. And what about power to weight? Well, power to weight is important in climbing speed. I don't think it's as important when it comes to climbing steep banks, which is what we're going to be doing today. When you talk about rider weights as well, you can actually bring in rider weighting and how the rider moves the body around when you're climbing up steep banks, because the steeper the hill, you're going to have to balance the traction on the rear tyre and the weight on the front wheel so it doesn't loop out. And how's that going to be different between the conventional bike and the e-bike? And finally, geometry is going to have a key impact in the way these bikes climb up the hills as well. Now, if you look at World Cup cross-country riders such as Sam Gaze, who won the World Cup cross-country opener in South Africa, he actually had a 120 mil stem up front, drop down, which meant he could really get over the front of the bike to attack those climbs to gain time. What's quite interesting is the High Bike is obviously 180 mil travel, closer to a downhill bike, and as I mentioned earlier, it really doesn't have any right to be on this hill when it comes to climbing. It's got a slacker head angle, it's got a longer wheelbase, so it's actually got loads of disadvantages. However, what the e-bike does have is the ability to accelerate in an instant, and when you have a bank that is changing in its angle as you're going up the hill, then this bike can just go. It's got the drive to get you up those breaks of slope. Whereas the non-e-bike, you have to build in momentum, you have to get that power all by yourself, and that can become quite exhausting, particularly on longer banks. So it's that speed of acceleration which is really going to put this bike at an advantage, I think, when we're doing this challenge today. So we're going to do 3 climbs of different intensity. Starting off with this one. It's a typical single track climb. There's a few rocks on it, nothing too difficult. So first up, the Scott Spark. So it's really important to keep the wheels moving on a climb like this and try and avoid any stop-start movements. This is where SRAM Eagle really comes into its own on this technical stuff. But it's still pretty difficult, keeping it moving, keeping the traction down. Whoa. So on the e-bike, I'm in standard power mode, but I know I've got plenty in the tank if I get unstuck and I need to power myself out of trouble. But it's much easier to keep your cadence here. Traction's good. It's a far smoother ride than on the non-e-bike. Whoa, easy. So already after the first challenge, it becomes quite evident the difference between the two bikes when you're going uphill. On the conventional bike, on the Scott, it really is critical you keep those wheels moving and avoid any kind of spinning out on small stones. On the e-bike, it's quite different. Your momentum is much smoother. If you're going to go offline or get into trouble, you can power out and get back online so much easier. And like I said, if there's a sudden change of slope, you've got the acceleration on the e-bike to get you up and over, whereas on the conventional bike, on the Scott, there's a lot more effort involved, a lot more focus to get you up the trail. Now, when I rode the bikes to the van this morning, I actually rode the Scott, and riding it felt totally natural, absolutely nothing out of the ordinary. However, now we're halfway through the test and I'm swapping between the two bikes, it is really becoming quite an effort when I get back on the Scott. I mean, I've just pedalled up this tarmac road and I'm already sweating and struggling to get up there, and I'm just wondering what the reason is for that. Is it because I'm trying to achieve the speed of the e-bike, or is it maybe just because I'm just knackered? I don't know. I'm trying to work it out still. Stage 2, slightly steeper, slightly more technical, still the need to keep your momentum and avoid that back wheel from spinning. On a stage like this, rider skill is going to come to the fore. You really need to focus, keep your line, get over those little limestone knuckles. I think this is going to be quite a test. That's better. Get up there. That's hard work, man. Wow, it's become quickly apparent just how technical this is, even on an e-bike. Whoa. But it actually allows you to get to those places you simply couldn't do. So, top challenge 2, the e-bike's got up there, but the conventional bike is not, simply because it really is quite technical. But even on the e-bike, that is such an effort. But what's quite noticeable is that on a conventional bike, it simply is not sustainable to do technical climbs over a distance. So I think the e-bike does let you get to places which you can't on a conventional bike, but the question is, can an e-bike actually climb steeper than a conventional bike, which is the place we need to find next. Okay, so here we have a steep bank and I'm measuring it at about 38 degrees. So it's not 45, which I wanted, but nevertheless, it's still pretty steep. Let's go and ride these two bikes and see which one we can get up it. Simple as that. So run 1 is going to be done without momentum, simply going to roll in and try and power up that bank from start. Here we go. Gas it. Oh boy! Not far off. Okay, so run 2 is going to be the K-net approach. Oh no, rubbish. Oh, that was useless. Okay, I think I'm going to try the e-bike. Okay, so e-bike roll-in approach. I'm in the lowest gear. I'm going very slow. So here we go. Oh my God, that was just so easy. Oh my God. I'm actually quite shocked. That's pretty much all about balancing the front down and traction on the back tyre, and that drive you can get to force you up that bank in an instant. Oh, I'm absolutely spent. So after spending all day climbing lots of classic mountain bike trails at different inclines, I think the conclusion is it doesn't actually matter what the trail is or how steep it is, it's still hard work riding a mountain bike uphill, e-bike or non-e-bike. But we rode, to answer the question, we did ride a big steep slab, and in that instance, the e-bike can climb steeper than the non-e-bike, which was the question which we set out to answer at the beginning of this video. But I don't think it's actually about that, because you're not going to be climbing smooth slabs all day or tarmac roads. You're much more likely to be riding the type of trails which we've included in this video. And what it proves, I think, is that the e-bike can actually ride steeper and it can change direction quicker, and it's more sustainable. It means you can ride up longer hills on the e-bike, and that's quite key to what it's all about, I think. So yeah, lots of questions. Like I said, you can come back to tires and setup and geometry and rider fitness and power to weight and all those things, and at the end of the day the e-bike still comes out on top. Hope you like this video. If you want to see more questions about e-bikes, there's Are E-Bikes Fast just down by here, and the other one, the classic, Are E-Bikes Cheating, just over here somewhere. Please give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you want to see more, click on the subscribe where you can see much more e-bike action.